Get to the seawall! Daniels! This is what you trained for! Now pick up that banger! You can do this! Yes, sir!
Call of Duty World War II review. Right, here we are with another Call of Duty game. I haven't played some of the more recent Call of Duty, so I'm a little bit out of touch with it. So some of the things I bring up in this review have already been sort of done in other games. I apologise. But yeah, I've played quite a lot of Call of Duties over the years. Certainly that since Advanced Warfare, Call of Duty sort of took the market by storm there and sort of took things to the next level. And have used that same formula many, many times. And again, that same formula's in this one. It's not a bad thing, but it's the same formula that we were using 10 years ago. And this is where I have slight issues with the game. So moving into the first part of it is the campaign. Now, I've seen people say that this is about 6 hours long. That seems a little harsh to me. Maybe it's just because I'm not very good at Call of Duty. But I didn't feel like I've died that many times, and it certainly took me more than 6 hours. I haven't timed it, but I'd say it's more sort of between that 8 and 10 hour range personally than 6 hours, but that might just be a reflection of my ability on Call of Duty. Obviously it's set in World War II. The sort of opening part of the game, we start to meet the characters and the various people that are going to be in our squad, and that's mildly interesting, and you become mildly attached to these guys, but nothing spectacular. Quite a few of the times, to be honest, throughout the campaign I wanted to just skip through the cutscenes. I wasn't too interested. The sort of slight only interesting thing to point out is you've got one of the characters, Sergeant Pearson, that's played by Josh Duhamel, and it looks a lot like him. Maybe a little bit later on with some of the cutscenes they seem to maybe lose that a little bit. Maybe that's just me, but I sort of felt like it wasn't quite as good. Not that that really matters at all. Playing the campaign and everything, it's if you played Call of Duty before, which you probably have, then you kind of know what to expect. The beach landing is the opening mission, and that's it's enjoyable. We've seen it before, obviously, in films and various games in the past. Obviously, the Call of Duties before, but the one for me that was sort of resonated more back then, the one I enjoyed the most probably actually was the Medal of Honor Forged Alliance. That one was, I probably enjoyed that most of the sort of the World War II games back then. It is good to see that we've got back to the World War II formula, and from going onto the beaches and stuff like that, we push on into France and into Germany, and sort of eventually towards the end of the war. It's good. I think the people making this wanted you to get attached to these characters. You don't really, and part of the issue I have with that is that when you're actually doing the sort of the missions and stuff, although when you put your target in, you can see who it is, and they also offer. And I believe this is new, you can get them to sort of give you medical packs or a bit of extra ammo. Each one of them sort of somewhat specialises in each one of those things, and that's quite a nice little touch. But when everything's kicking off and going on around you, and there's explosions, and you see one of your troops die in front of you and stuff like that, someone gets blown up, you're like, oh, is that one of the characters, or is it not? You never really know, but what you can usually safely assume is it's not. And so that sort of disconnects it a little bit for me. And this is an issue I've always had slightly with Call of Duty games, is when you're doing the campaign. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, not so much on this, but sometimes it is a little bit difficult to make out who's the enemy and who's on your side. Obviously the enemy is usually the ones that are over there, but when you're sort of pushing on and stuff, sometimes it's not entirely clear who's sort of just appearing, and and that might just be me, but I found that as a bit of a problem throughout with Call of Duties over the years. And this sort of plays into some of the other things that I've got an issue with the campaign. Like I say, this franchise has been going for quite a long time, and this sort of format that they use has been going for quite a long time. And it's these tick boxes of certain things going on, driving and stuff like that, which are a bit tedious and not really very interesting. There's a mission with where you have to sort of be a spy kind of to an extent, and you have to sort of remember certain passwords. Nothing too taxing whatsoever, but this isn't Call of Duty. That's not what I want to play Call of Duty. It's an action game. Let's play action, not messing around and like saving young children and stuff like that, having to creep around in a cellar. It was all a bit weird, some of the missions, to be fair. But on the whole, I did enjoy it. I've always enjoyed every Call of Duty I've ever played, and this is no different. It was an enjoyable campaign on the whole. The linear element of Call of Duty is becoming a little bit tiresome. Maybe this is somewhere where they could possibly look to try and improve the game by making it a bit more open at points. That's the same, to be honest, with multiplayer. It's still too small, for my opinion. But like I say, it does follow those same formats, those same formulas that all the previous campaigns have had before. So, the guy running from behind the door, certain situations, you've done it all before, and it loses its sort of magic, maybe. because it's been done before, and I just feel like they need to mix it up a little bit. But beyond those things, we have obviously the multiplayer, and we have Nazi Zombies. Now, Nazi Zombies, if you've ever played it before, then you'll know what to expect. It's more or less the same thing, a couple of different maps and stuff like that. There'll be a few. I didn't go too far into it. I'm not a massive Nazi Zombie fan, if I'm truly honest. Some of my friends are obsessed with it, and have played and bought Call of Duty games in the past solely for Nazi Zombies, and I don't think I've even played the campaign ever. So it's certainly got a following. And if you're into Nazi Zombies, then this gives you that same thing. There's a bit of a prologue bit as well. Now, I don't know if this has been on previous ones, but there was a little sort of bit of a mission prologue thing you could do, which was mildly interesting. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's new or not, but that's in there, and it's a little bit of extra content, which adds to it. And then going into the final part is multiplayer. Again, if you play Call of Duty, which you probably have, then you know what to expect. It's more or less all the same before, but obviously with a World War II skin on. There's a couple of new sort of mission modes in there. Again, I'm not 100% sure if these things have been from the past, but they seem to sort of relate more to the actual campaign missions, and you can do stuff within there, holding certain positions or taking certain positions, but not quite in the same way as capture the flag or domination-y sort of things like that. It's something a bit different, and I did quite like that. And one of the other things that I found in this game, which again I apologise if it's been in some of the more recent ones, is that you can play multiplayer without actually having to go online or even having anyone else here. There's actual AI bots you can select and do games yourself. So you could set up scenarios to an extent where it's just you and another guy against eight bots, or I think 11 or maybe 12 bots it goes up to, and you can range the difficulty on that. That's something that used to feature in first-person shooter games back in the day, maybe more before it sort of became too on the internet, so there was a need for it, whereas now there isn't so much. But that is something I quite like. It's sometimes playing online and stuff is quite stressful, and this is a more sort of relaxed version of that. That is a big tick in the box from my perspective, and like I say, it may have featured in some of the earlier ones in recent years, which I hadn't picked up on. But yeah, that definitely an improvement for me, and that's the sort of direction. There's little things like that improves it. Now, just following on from the multiplayer, we have the sort of camp section where you can see other people online and stuff and move around and get sort of weekly missions and stuff like that. It looked kind of interesting. We've got bloody loot boxes dropping out of the sky though, and seeing what people select, which just sort of, what? I don't know, that just seemed weird to me. Again, maybe I've missed something and I haven't sort of followed the sort of direction that we've got to now, where we have weird boxes falling out of the sky and little things flashing in front of us. But that just sort of like took away sort of from the immersion a little bit of it being in World War II, because that doesn't happen, does it? But on the whole, it's again nice little sort of addition. It just adds a little bit more to it, gives it a bit more feel. And there are those little bits extra into this game, which does add to it a little bit. Like I say, the bot things and stuff like that. And the campaign is reasonably enjoyable. And if you're looking for a decent first-person shooter that's based in World War II, look no further than this game, because it offers you that perfectly. And if you enjoy Call of Duty and you're a Call of Duty fan, then there's no reason not to buy this game. I would say wait for it to go on sale, but generally from my perspective, Call of Duty games don't go on sale until about 7 or 8 years after the release, from what I can see. So that's probably not an option, so you probably will have to pay full price. I haven't gone into the season pass or anything like that. I don't think I will be purchasing any of that extra stuff, partly because it all just feels a little bit overly expensive. Maybe I might be able to purchase some of the individual stuff as extra maps and stuff going forward, but as far as I'm aware at this point, none of that's been released yet. Going into the game itself and the gameplay side of it, again, it's Call of Duty. It works really well. This is a PC version I've been playing, so there are a few little bit of glitches and stuff, but that's more probably a reflection of my PC rather than the game, to be fair to it. However, there were a few bits which weren't to do with my PC. I haven't really had any sort of exact crashes, but as you'll see with some of this footage here, stuff just goes a bit fucking weird. And that happened a few times. I got a point where, with all the stuff that's going on here, I was having to basically hold off an assault for a certain period of time, like you do, those not choke points, but those bits where you're stuck and you've got to hold the position for a certain amount of time. But yet, I couldn't see anything beyond this wall. It just literally nothing. And just randomly shooting and seeing if my little X is actually sort of like highlighting to say I've killed anyone. And that went on for a little while, and that was quite painful. And there's another bit with the tank, where I'm reversing away trying to escape from some tanks, and I just fall off the side of the map into oblivion. It only happened 2 or 3 times, but to be honest, that's not really good enough, is it? So in conclusion, I have enjoyed playing this game. It was good to play another Call of Duty. I haven't played one for a little while. I enjoyed the campaign. I enjoyed getting back into the multiplayer side of it. Nazi Zombies I've dabbled a little bit, but I'm not too into Nazi Zombies. However, it is the same tried and tested format, and they do need to, I think, start to try and come up with some different stuff, at least some different ideas of how the campaign will play out. I know it's in World War II and all that's changed, but at the same time, it almost feels like after 9 minutes, guy jumps from behind the door. It does feel there's certain bits that are just so similar to what we've done before. It lacks that sort of excitement, that it had before. If you've never played a Call of Duty game, however, you're going to be very excited, and there'll be very good bits in this campaign that you'll enjoy. But for people that have, which I imagine most people have, you will recognise very similar scenarios as you've played before. And that leads me to my final score. I mean, if you've seen my review for Ghost Recon, I gave that a 7 out of 10, Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, I know they're slightly different games, but in terms of the enjoyment and replayability for that game, I have to say that's more. And because it's so grand and everything, there's a lot more to it. Now, because I gave that a 7 out of 10, I have to say I'm going to have to give this one a 6 out of 10. It maybe seems a little bit harsh, but it's not really excelling at anything. If you've owned a Call of Duty game before, got World at War or whatever, then maybe there's not even any real need to purchase this game. Yes, it offers some different content, but nothing dramatic enough to really justify buying it. Now, I don't know if all the sort of people online are going to move over to this one from previous ones. That might be a reason to do it, but it's nothing. It's no great leap forward. And after sort of almost 10 years, I feel the franchise does need to make a bit of a leap forward.